Good day and welcome back to another Honkai Star Rail video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the latest character summon banner, and that is for Luocha, who has been added into Honkai Star Rail. Now Luocha is an abundance type character, which means he heals allies on your team, and he's got some pretty interesting abilities. In terms of his talent, he has the Cycle of Life, which basically gives him a standby heal slash kind of buffing mechanism, whereby he places a field effect across the battlefield, which will enable allies to heal off of their attack, as well as also empowering their attacks against the enemy. He then has Death Wish, which is his ultimate attack. This allows him to remove buffs and strip buffs from the opposition, which allows him to heal his current team, as well as do some pretty good damage. We then have Prayer of the Abyss Flower, which is his skill, and this allows him to restore health to the ally, as well as also, of course, giving him 1 stack of the Abyss Flower. If the ally HP drops below 50%, he will do an auto cast of this ability once every 2 turns. And basically, if you use his technique to enter battle, he'll cover the battlefield with his special ability, which will give everyone the field AoE healing alongside the increased damage. What's cool to note, at least with Luocha and the way he works, is that he's actually got a lot of his abilities being attack orientated, which means you can actually build him quite offensively, and his healing will scale based off of that. So having good attack abilities and attack powers will actually increase his healing and effectiveness overall, which is pretty cool. Of course, in terms of his bonus abilities, generally speaking, just abilities that augment the accessibility to his field ability, which will obviously increase the amount of healing and damage that your team does. In terms of Eidolons, obviously the more copies of a unit you get, the better they perform, but I would say he benefits quite decently from Eidolons, especially his second Eidolon I feel is very good, and basically allows you to apply a shield to an ally, which I think is really solid, on top of improving his automatic healing function. And then of course his final ability is probably also one of the more useful ones, with it of course allowing him to reduce type resistance by the enemies for 2 turns. A big thing with buff stripping, or the removal of buffs, is that it can be something that's incredibly useful in certain fights against certain enemies. For example, the Mara style enemy that revives can have their revive stripped by being debuffed before they are defeated. This is something that's pretty good. In terms of having units that cast a barrier, the ultimate will strip the enemy of the barrier ability before doing its damage, which again is also something that is pretty useful. So there's quite a few decent reasons whereby players may want to consider bringing out Luocha. Obviously, something that's also pretty important with Luocha is that he is an imagination character, and I think barring Velt, we don't have a lot of imagination characters that are currently highly accessible in the game. So yeah, it is one of those things. Obviously you can see here we start the battle with casting our field. This allows our allies to heal off of their attacks, which is obviously pretty helpful. You can see we have the Prayer of Abyss. By healing our allies, we're going to be able to debuff or dispel their debuffs, and also obviously heal them. We then have the ultimate. You can see here the usability of it by stripping the opposition of their buffs, which increases our overall damage to them. and thus makes life a little bit easier. Beyond that, I would say there's not anything too crazy to understand with Luocha. A big thing about him is that he'll strip buffs from the opposition, so timing the usage of his ultimate is a bit more important than some units whereby you might just want to let loose on their ultimate as soon as it appears. He benefits a lot from stripping buffs from the opposition, so if you can do that, that's generally a pretty good kind of, yeah, I would say pretty good reasoning to have him kind of function that way. Of course, you can see the automated abilities kicking in as well. His ability to heal enemies as they fall below thresholds, his automatic field ability. So he's got quite a few automated kind of buffing mechanisms, which I think is also quite helpful. It's quite nice whenever you are doing content or are trying to test out how a unit works, or to have a unit that can do things passively as well as actively is always something that I find at least to be very helpful. But yeah, that's basically it. Not really too much else to say. I think if you want to summon on him, you can, but prioritize it if you need a healer and if you're lacking imagination. Bye.